Hello and welcome to Write On, the podcast from Final Draft. This is the show where we talk about all things screenwriting. I'm your host, Phil Golasso. Today we have an interview with David Weil, creator of the new anthology series Solos. The show features 7 unique, character-driven science fiction stories about the human experience.
Hello?
A memory isn't simply a thing you have. It's a promise.
Tell me a story, Mommy. A happy one.
Oh, we had this secret handshake. They'll never forget you. How do you know? They'll remember.
I am alone.
Alone.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh,
Though we all feel alone in different ways, in feeling alone, we are somehow all together.
David and guest host Sharday Sellers discussed how Solos breaks the conventions of screenwriting, what makes a good showrunner, working with actors like Anthony Mackie and Anne Hathaway, and more. Check it out.
Hi.
Hi, David. How are you?
Doing well. It's so great to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well. I know we had an awkward start, so I'm going to make it even more awkward. I'm sending you my therapy bill for all of the emotional damage that you put me through.
I'm so sorry.
Series.
I hope
didn't-
there's some resolution also and some catharsis, but
Yeah. No, it really made me call my mom, especially after that first episode. And go, Mom, did I tell you I love you today?
oh no. Well, I'm sorry, but thank you. That's like the best compliment in the world. So thank you.
She was genuinely surprised too. She's like, what do you need? I was like, no, I promise you, this is just a call to say I love you.
That's amazing.
So this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first project after you signed your overall deal with Amazon, correct?
Correct.
Knowing that you kind of had the free reins and they're going to let you do what you want, why settle on Solos? Why this project?
Well, I think that Solos to me was born out of a time, of great disconnection and loneliness and solitude. I've always wanted to tell a story that returned me to the origins of how I fell in love with storytelling. And that was through the best storytellers that I knew. It was my brother, telling ghost stories around a campfire, scaring, the hell out of me as a young kid, or my grandmother, around her kitchen table, sharing her stories of her experiences during the war, which inspired hunters. And so I just love that intimacy of one storyteller in a single room telling a story that could transport you. And we don't really see that often, on screen. I think that, we're always limited by length, by convention, by narrative structure. So though I would love to have given, Al Pacino a 30-page monologue in Hunters, it's just not something that is done. And so this was a relief. This was a way, this series was a way to do that. But I think the desire to do it and the possibility of doing it are two different things. And so when the pandemic hit, I wrote this in May because I think emotionally, this was to me a source of light. This to me was a source of catharsis. It was an exploration of what does it mean to be human? How can I try and feel connected to other human beings through my writing? And so I met these characters of Tom and Peg and Leia and Stuart. I found connection with them. I found shared hopes and dreams, shared fears and mistakes. And I think I, was able to really speak about things that I was feeling, things about life and death, about sickness and health, about, dreams and fears through this story and through these characters. So the long-winded response to your answer is it was certainly not an easy sell. I feel lucky that Jen Salke read the scripts. I wrote Tom and Peg almost as a proof of concept. I wrote them simply because I had to write them. I had to get these stories out of me. And then my hope was that they wanted to do it as a series. And Jen saw, I think, a great deal of nuance and humanity in them. And she felt that they were something unlike anything that we really get to see often on screen. So she took the leap with me, and all of Amazon did. And here's Solos, you know?
And I think that's amazing because I was thinking about it last night as I was going through the episodes again. And I was like, these are 30 minutes, drama, anthology, sci-fi, one character, one location. You pretty much broke all of the screenwriting rules we've ever been told.
It's so true. It's so true.
So was that cognizant? Like, did you think about that? Did you say, I'm going to break all the rules and just throw everything I learned out the window? Or when you sat down the page, was it like, I just need to get this out in whatever form it comes out, in whatever way, I'm just going to back off of it?
You know, it was breaking every rule and then also adhering to them as well in a different kind of way. Because I think that it's more of the latter of what you said so beautifully, which is that I wanted to meet these characters and I wanted to really come to know them. And I felt so freed by the lack of limitation of page count or of plot or, you know, needing twists and turns and all of that. So I just wanted to get to know them. This is how I usually write any series that I create. I get to know the character through writing a monologue, them telling a story. You know, though there were so many conventions that were, I suppose, that I did not adhere to, there were others. You know, 3-act structure is something that was so important for each of these. I almost approached the monologue in the same way that I would a feature film or a series of television, where it had to have its peaks and valleys. At the end of every episode, I like to have a cliffhanger or a character reveal or a plot twist. In this very condensed, you know, story, only 30 pages, I had to do that, but I had to do it every 2 or 3 minutes, you know? So like every 2 pages, I needed another character reveal or emotional twist or emotional reveal so that an audience felt engaged at every moment. I know that this is perhaps a lot to ask of an audience to sit with one character in one room, but my hope and my feeling is that people will be so enchanted by these brilliant performances that they'll look at their watch and say, the way that's over, I don't want it to be over. You know, how did 30 minutes pass in one location? So that's my hope.
I think you did that very well, especially when I was watching Tom's episode. I got really misty-eyed because I was like, I know what this means. If this episode ends, it means he ends, and therefore everything else ends too. And I'm really, really sad.
Definitely. Me too. I and Anthony Mackie, I mean, talk about a brilliant artist who I feel so lucky to have worked with, who to play both roles, to be his own co-star in that piece, and for him to access those deep emotional moments. It was really profound.
Correct me if I'm misinformed, but you directed the Tom piece.
I did.
Because I love, you know, watching the credits, obviously. And then when I saw that you directed it, I thought, well, honestly, this is Anthony Mackie's, I think, best performance I've seen drawn out of him. So I would love to know, as a director, how are you drawing performances out of these really high profile actors, especially as someone who's, you're not new, but you're newish to the game. Totally. Do you feel intimidated telling Anne Hathaway to take it back and try it again?
Well, Zach Braff directed that episode. So,
right.
Yeah. But to your awesome question, I think as a writer, I'm such an observer. I think the best superpower for any writer is to be an observationalist. And as a showrunner, the best skill is to be a good listener. And I think both of those things, for me, this is the first, you know, I directed 3 of the episodes, the first thing I've ever directed. I use those skills, observing and listening. And so my greatest strategy, I suppose, as a filmmaker to help these actors achieve these performances was simply to say, what do you need from me to them? You know, what can I offer you? What kind of support? How do you like to work? How can I put you in an environment and a situation that where you can fly and soar? And so those were some of the most wonderful conversations with Uzo and Anthony and Constance. Was, what do you need from me? Like, honestly, how can I support you? Because they are such masters of their craft. Like, they did it. It's them. I mean, really, the pieces sing because of them, because they are all so talented. But I just wanted to make sure that I was, you know, following their process as opposed to them following mine. We only had a few days to shoot each of these episodes, three days. So we really had to be so closely designed with each other and in such lockstep that I think a lot of the work actually happened before in the prep process, where we really got to know each other. The benefit to me of the Tom episode was that I wrote it. Anthony really knew what I was after because those were the words that I had written. It was just such a wonderful dance where I knew what he needed. He knew what I was after in the piece, and we just got to find it together.
Oh, I love that. That's so awesome. Oh, I could talk to you forever, but I know we're short on time. So this is for final draft. So obviously a lot of my questions have to do with screenwriting. And I know this is a very bland question, but our writers really love to read this. What is your philosophy on outlining? Are you an outliner? Or are you straight to the page?
I'm usually a straight to the page vomit draft kind of guy, which I suppose you could say is somewhat of an outline or more of a scriptment. I like to see where the story takes me. I feel like outlining sometimes prescribes too much and it doesn't allow for as much discovery. But I always loosely outline. I will have the, let's say, 5 beats of the pilot that I want to hit just as guideposts, and those may change. Now more and more, I used to outline a lot, and now more and more, I do like to discover more in the moment. And trust me, my vomit drafts are so bad. I mean, they're like indecipherable. Like I can't even really read them, and I'm typing them. So it's really of just like, oh, what's that visual? Oh, I love this line. I want to hit this emotion. It becomes almost like a symphony. It's like you're composing music, and you want to feel and hear and see different things.
What advice would you give your younger writer self now that you've accomplished 2 really great projects for Amazon? If you could go back in time, what would you say to that younger writer?
I would say to take a breath. No, I would say, I think that all of the no's will one day lead to a yes. I can't tell you how many no's I had, in the 10 years it took from like moving out to LA to then getting Hunters made. And you know what? The other thing that I would say is every script that is passed on will one day have its moment, and the best thing I did, I think, as a young writer was every no that I got, like every script that I wrote and then no one wanted it, or I didn't know how to get it seen by Hollywood or the people that, mattered or could do something. I then just started writing the next script, and then that got rejected. And then I wrote the next script. And now, I'm in a moment where after Hunters and Solos and, a few other things, now I'm pulling back out those old scripts and trying to find a life for them. And now I think because there is some momentum and people now are more aware of my work, I can say, take another look at this thing. Take another look at the first thing that I wrote. And maybe there's something in here. Everything you write has purpose. And I would just encourage people to view every script, whether it gets made or not, as a necessary step in their journey toward, success.
Well, since in terms of purpose, since we're on that topic, let's also talk about intentions. Do you set any course of intentions for yourself with your projects before you sit down to write them?
By intention, do you mean what I hope to realize within the piece or what I hope the piece does?
Actually, both. Like if you're sitting down saying, I know I need to talk about depression, I need to get that out. Like my intention for this piece is to kind of suss through that. And then also at the end of the day, like with Solos, do you have an intention for the entire project through Amazon? I hope people take away this from this project.
It's such a great question. I always like to lead by emotion. So my intention or less sometimes, I want to change society in this way, or I want to, but more about, I want people to feel this. I want people to feel this feeling. I want, for Solos, for example, I really wanted people to feel connection. And I wanted them at the end of the piece to feel like in some way they felt a little bit less alone. Part of my desire, especially for the one actor in one location, is that I wanted you, to feel like you were having a very intimate experience with Helen Mirren as Peg or with Constance Wu as Jenny, and that it was just the two of you in a room together, and she was sharing, the story with you. So certainly I think this arose from a time of great solitude and isolation. And to me, this was a bit of a piece of how can we create connection? In terms of, a larger body of work and larger career, yes. Hunters is so important to me because I believe that it continues the story of the Holocaust and honors survivors and victims like my grandmother and my grandfather. I think that through art, we can keep memory alive. We can keep stories alive. We can keep people alive. Whenever I set out to do a piece of work, always dramatically, I like to, or tonally or genre-wise, I love flexing different muscles. I rarely like to do something. I'm not going to be like doing 8 action movies in a row, or a conspiracy thriller. Like I really like playing in different sandboxes. And I really do love each piece to have a different impact on the world or on culture or just on a viewer, so that they can, my hope one day and, however long, but for someone to look through the things that I've written and with each one to feel something different.
I want to talk to you briefly about your time in quarantine because that inspired this wonderful show. Were you quarantining alone? How did that go?
Yeah, I was quarantining with my then fiance, who it's a happy ending, not a bad one, who's now my wife.
Okay.
We had to push our wedding 4 times. We were in Los Angeles. The rest of my family, my parents, my 3 brothers, my 7 nieces and nephews are all on the East Coast. And so we were here in our, apartment, very cloistered and, alone, very alone. Solos was almost like a wish fulfillment of what if we were connected? What if we were seen and heard? I missed my family so deeply. And so I think as you read, a lot of the pieces are about family. They're about, Peg is inspired by my mother, my grandmother. So it was a way for me to be connected to them. Tom was in part inspired by my brother and my father. And so it was a way for me to be connected with them. I think it was in the absence of connection and loved ones, I wrote these pieces really to reconnect with them in a very deep way.
I will say Peg's line of "I don't want to be a bother" is something that my grandma used to say all the time. And it just hurt me so deep. Again, the receipt for my therapy is hitting your PR's inbox quite soon. So I think it's like a copay of $15. You can handle it, but I refuse to pay for it.
I'm in.
It's an emergency session. I refuse to pay for it. So what are you looking forward to next in your career? What is something you haven't done yet that you're like, I really hope someone lets me direct this like Star Wars style, or what would that be for you?
That would be, I would love to do, a big, Star Wars or Marvel piece, but for there to be an intimacy to it. I think a lot of the work that I love to do is very intimate and very nuanced and very character driven. I'd love to do something with so much scope like Hunters, but to direct something with a lot of scope, but also a lot of heart and humanity.
Then let's talk about the directing really quick.
Cool.
Because first time directing, did you catch the bug yet? Are you obsessed like everyone else?
I've definitely caught the bug. I think that, it's funny because I feel like a writer first, and I will be. But there are certain things that I would love to direct. And then there are certain pieces that I write that, I'm going to want to have another filmmaker come in on and direct. The greatest luck that I've had in writing so far has been working with filmmakers like Susanna Bier and Darren Aronofsky and J.J. Abrams. And so I love that collaboration because I think that these filmmakers bring so much and discover so much within the script that I would not have even expected or thought about. So I do think the collaboration is important. That said, there are certain things that I see like so clearly in my mind's eye as a writer that I would want to be the one to bring that to life.
Is that how you made the decision to direct Tom in the other piece as well?
It is, it's funny because I think for Sasha and for Jenny, I'm just such a fan of Tori Sampson and Becca Bowling. And I was like, how can I be a part of this episode? So as a fan, I wanted to realize those episodes. And then for Tom, yes, like it was the first episode that I had written for the series. I felt it so clearly and I saw it so clearly. So I was very excited to direct something that I had written.
Tom was the first piece you wrote for the series, but it's actually episode 2, if I'm wrong.
Exactly.
So how are we deciding what you're starting the audience off with?
It was just a conversation with Amazon. I think it was looking at the totality of the different episodes as a whole and really looking at what is the kind of greater arc, how are you feeling along the way and how can we create differences between each episode so that they all feel really fresh. But the order was just more intuitive and guttural. I think that there's something so dynamic about the Leia episode. So to start with that kind of dynamism and energy was really exciting.
And I want to talk about you as a showrunner now. First time showrunning, correct?
So second time. So I showran Hunters, and so okay. I felt like I learned so much on that I was a much better showrunner, a much more experienced showrunner season.
What's the biggest lesson from showrunning Hunters that you took into Solos?
I think really discovering how actors work best and how to help them and support them in achieving what they need. Al Pacino is the greatest collaborator in the world, and our whole cast, Logan and Jerrica and Lena and everybody on Hunters. So that was such a wonderful experience, and I got to carry those lessons over to Solos.
And what about hiring on directions? Do you just call directors? Do you call Zach Braff and say, hey, you want to direct Anne Hathaway today? Like, Is it just a conversation?
It's a conversation. Zach read the script, and I just, Anne and I both thought he would be so fantastic for the piece. He's so dynamic and thoughtful and emotional and funny and really just brilliant and innovative. So the piece required, I think, such innovation. It's three of the same character, really, at different times in her life. How do you make that as dynamic as possible? So it was such a no-brainer for us, and Zach read and loved it and was like, please sign me up. And just the collaboration with him was a dream come true. I cannot wait to do something else with him.
Small connecting story. When I first moved to LA, I did background on Scrubs, and I got to see Zach Braff in all his comedy glory live. So that's what I loved about the piece, because it had this really great mix of emotion and humor.
Absolutely. And Annie is just so funny and
she is really funny.
Her timing is perfect. It's awesome.
More comedies for Anne Hathaway.
Oh man, so
amazing.
More everything for her. She should do everything.
So as a writer, what are you watching? Are you watching, and what have you watched in quarantine, maybe with your wife, that you go, damn, that was really good. I should have wrote that myself.
Oh my gosh. I love the question of what am I so jealous that I wasn't a part of? Well, it was awesome watching, Anthony and Falcon the Winter Soldier. He's just, he deserves all the awards and all the accolades. I love The Undoing, which Susanna Bier directed. We watched so much during quarantine. I Made a Story was probably the best thing ever on TV ever. But that was, I guess, early quarantine days. And then a lot of documentaries and docuseries. I feel like everyone says that, but it's just true. Like The Circus on Showtime and Vice on Showtime. I just watched them on Amazon, which was Little Marvin's, so brilliant. There's so much. I consume everything. It's I'm really consuming it all the time.
You tried Ted Lasso yet?
I did, and Zach directed episode 2, which I just love. I really love that. Queen's Gambit's great. There's so much good stuff on TV. It's like an embarrassment of riches right now.
Are you nervous going into your second project? Do you feel like the follow-up is always more, anxious than the first one?
I think Solos is so different from Hunters that, that's what excites me. That is just such a different piece. I'm always nervous, in part just because I hope that the piece is received in the way that we intended and that people really feel something with it. But at a certain point, I am so proud of the show. I feel so lucky to have worked with these brilliant artists. And no, I with Solos, I'm really just so at peace, because I think it is such a beautiful and intimate and different kind of piece of art than we get to see. So I'm excited.
Speaking of beautiful, I will say it's got one of the best cinematographies per episode I've ever seen. How do you go on onboarding a DP, and what are you looking for when you're having those discussions?
Well, it was such a quick discussion because William Rexer, our amazing DP, was our cinematographer on Hunters. And so I just called him up and I said, please do this. And he said, I'll read the script. And then he read the script and he's like, I'm in. So he is such a brilliant mind and such a compassionate artist. He's so generous to the directors, and he works with all of us in such a beautiful way, but he has such a clear vision and such a point of view. And so, you talk about the connective thread through the series. It really is his cinematography and Ruth Ammon's production design and Shiona Tarini's costume design. So, it's all those things at once. And and when I talk about compassionate filmmaking, what I also mean by that is he wants to amplify the actors' craft. He's not like, oh, we need a crazy Dutch, shot here. And we need it's like, how can I help the actor heighten their performance or convey or express or communicate their performance? So he's such a joy to work with.
I loved watching, especially Anne Hathaway's, with all three of different versions of her.
Yes.
And the lighting, the light bulbs, I was like, shoot, this is so beautiful.
Totally.
Insane.
It is insane. And it was, Zach's imagination and Ruth Ammon's production design, and Danny, our incredible gaffer, really built this, with Will, this brilliant light design for the piece. And you see, by the washing machine, Zach wanted that in, green and cyan. And then by the time machine, it's much warmer. It's these great golds and yellows. And so it was just so dynamic.
As a showrunner, did you all shoot this during COVID?
We did. We shot it in October and November.
How was it being responsible for all those lives? I'm just kidding.
No, it's a great question. It's the thing I, went to bed thinking about and the thing I woke up thinking about. Safety came first, and I'm really proud of how successful we were in ensuring everybody's safety on set. That dictated everything. One of the most rewarding things was hearing Annie or Constance or Nicole speak at the end of the shoot and say, this is the safest that I felt during the pandemic. And I'm so thankful to all the wonderful cast and, all the wonderful crew for creating such a safe environment. So hearing that was probably the most rewarding thing of the entire shoot.
Okay, my last question. Thank you, Vanessa. I mean, why not? We've talked about so much, we might as well hit hard. The one thing I will say is that the diversity of this project is very comforting to see. I love movies and I love television, and it's hard to find movies and television that with people that look like me. Was that a conscious decision going in for you as well?
Absolutely. I think from the writing staff to the actors to the filmmakers to the crew, diversity is, when I put together a crew and a cast, that's most important. And I'll tell you why. Not only, is it right, but it also creates the best. Different perspectives create the best art, and it's diversity in every sense of the word. I feel really lucky to have worked with such a wonderful group, such an inclusive group of artists. And I want people like you and me to feel, whether it's Hunters or this, I mean, you see it in everything I do and I hope to continue to do with the cast, and just telling stories of people who often aren't given the opportunity to tell their own stories. So thank you for saying that. Honestly, it's the most meaningful thing in the world. And for you to feel that and pick up on that is incredible. But to me, it's just common sense. It really should be the new normal. And I hope we're working toward that in the industry.
Well, from your lips to all the execs' ears, let us pray.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, David. This is really great. I got so much more than I thought I was gonna. I usually get like 5 minutes and like 3 questions, so this is really wonderful.
This was amazing. Your questions are so fucking brilliant and thoughtful.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. And Vanessa and Alex, thank you for coordinating. And I love the show. I can't wait to be able to really talk about it out loud online as well.
Thank you so much. That really means the world to me, and I hope we get to talk again soon.
Yeah, I think I see a long career path for you. So I anticipate doing this again at some point.
I really hope so. Thank you so much.
Thanks to David Weil for coming on the show, and as always, a big thanks to Sharday Sellers for hosting. Solos is streaming on Amazon Prime. And as always, thanks to you, our listeners. If you liked this episode, leave us a review, and if you haven't already, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. For news about future episodes and more, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Final Draft Inc. and Instagram at Final Draft Screenwriting. This episode was produced by Kayla Guess with help from associate producer Emma Vranich. Music by T. Kelly. Thanks again, everyone. Until next time, write on.